YouTube, my people, what is up? It has been over a year since I did a bag update, and that is just unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. So I apologize in the most somewhat sincere way, I guess. You know, it's a bag update. I don't anticipate anybody's waiting with bated breath over the bag update from someone who is completely irrelevant on YouTube. But it's fun to do, and it's also kind of posterity for me to see how my game has changed and different things have gone over the past couple of years. So I want to dive right in. I got a stack here too of some discs that kind of make their way into my bag in different conditions that I'm going to talk about. Who would have thought a grip bag couldn't hold all the discs that I need? Go figure. But I did just play the other day, and I threw all but like one of the discs in my bag, and that was at my little easy course here, pretty close to my house, not my usual stomping grounds that are a little more challenging. So I do feel like I'm validated in carrying the 24 discs that I have. Anyway, here I am validating myself to the internet. Go figure that one too. So I'm going to start off with the putters, some of which you've seen before. Other ones are new, so I'll start with the ones that are old news. CT, Crazy Tough, Cam Todd, Challenger from Discraft. I got a stack of these. I love them for putting. I love them for upshots too. This one is the one I've been using the most frequently. It's got that green stamp if I can get the glare gone. That old Discraft logo, pretty sweet. I really like it. They're nice and firm. They're a little bit slick, but I don't really mind that because it seems like they kind of pop out of the hand really easy. So CT Challengers, if you're a firm putter person using a little more of a pitch putt style, definitely would recommend the Cam Todd, Crazy Tough Challengers. They're from the 2015 Ledgestone, I think, so they're a couple years old now. Yeah, 2015 Ledgestone. I also got this Challenger, this Discraft Midnight Z limited edition for upshots. I picked this up off of one of my good friends' brother-in-law. So Luke, shout out to you. Thank you, dude. Appreciate it. This is a great upshot disc. It is black, so I try and make sure I keep it in the fairway or else I might lose it. And it's limited edition. It's a pretty sweet disc. But it feels great in the hand. It feels just like my CT Challengers. And, you know, if I'm feeling worried about how slippery the CT is because it's wet or something, I will putt with this on occasion. But it's really pretty rare that I do that. Still got this soft magnet. My friend Jay Moldenhauer hooked me up with this. I like it for upshots. Goes nice and straight, gives a little bit of a turn. If I really put something into it, a little turnover upshots, hits the ground and stays, or hits a tree and stays and doesn't get me into more trouble. I do hit trees more often than I'd like to admit to. But yeah, soft magnet, great disc, nice and neutral flight, really feels nice in the hand. It's got a pretty wide diameter, and the shoulder sits really low on the profile of the disc. So it's just really comfortable to throw, kind of almost feels like a regular Frisbee, which for someone who's maybe transitioning to disc golf, they might be into that. Great disc, definitely check them out, give them a shot. And then you might have seen me in the past throw some ESP Zones, Discraft Zones, nice and flat top, low profile, overstable, beadless putter that I love for forehand approaches, backhand approaches, spike hyzers that I just need to just get up in the air, come down, and sit for pinpoint accuracy. After watching Ricky Wysocki go absolutely bananas last year, I thought, you know, maybe I could try out that Westside Discs BT Hard Harp that he loves so much. So I got myself one, and they're pretty awesome. They do have a little bit of a bead on them, but overall you can see if you've ever seen a Zone in your life, they look pretty much just like a Zone. They're nice and flat top. The shoulder's probably a little bit further down on the profile than a Zone, and there's a little bit of a scooped profile on the bottom as opposed to the Zone. It's just like flat 45-degree angle. But nice and comfortable in the hand. The BT hard plastic feels really good, and it seems pretty durable because I've put this thing through some stuff already, and it's holding up really great. So those are my putters. So moving on to the rest of my bag, I'll go on to the mid-ranges. If you've watched the last couple of bag updates, you know that I am a huge fan of this next disc, not only because it's a great versatile mid-range disc for great uses all over the course, but it also, to me, it fixed my form. It kind of fine-tuned my form. I'm somebody, not a super athletic guy, as you might be able to see, so fundamentals and having good solid form has always been something that I've really tried hard to do, and I got pretty good, at least for my own standards. You know, I kind of hit the level that I wanted to do. And buying this disc, the Discraft Comet, kind of sent me even over the edge. Gave me some extra distance just by smoothing out my form and getting my reach back and everything kind of in motion where I wasn't torquing discs. Because if you torque this disc at all, if you overpower it at all, it's just gonna kind of flutter and turn and burn. But if you master this thing, man, your entire game will just go to the next level, because it's one of those discs that you need a combination of finesse and power. And to me, that's kind of what disc golf really is all about. And golf, ball golf is all about. My dog's probably gonna be messing with me here for a minute, but he's cute. You guys have seen him before. So the Discraft Comet, definitely would recommend it. One of my favorite discs, something I don't ever anticipate leaving my bag for any reason. So, and I also have this Lucid EMAC Truth. Nice stamp, nice jolly launcher, really crystal clear. You can see my face through it. It's a little bit flexy, but the plastic, everything dynamic and Trilogy is really, really solid plastic. That Swedish plastic is so nice. But I keep one Truth in my bag, the EMAC Truth especially, because it's almost like a little bit of a longer buzz, but to me it's a little bit more understable than at least the buzzes that I bag. I know some people probably have buzzes that are crazy flippy for their turnovers. Hey buddy. Hey, Dad's doing a video. Yeah. So I keep this one for a little bit extra glide, because it honestly gives me about 20 to 30 feet more than my buzzes do, which is cool. I mean, I like it, but in some instances you don't want that extra glide either. You want to be able to hone in and dial in your distance. So I keep this really for like uphill approaches, because that extra glide helps me get it up to where I need it to be. So EMAC Truth, great disc, but I only bag one of them now. So I bag 3 buzzes, starting with the most overstable one. This nice brand new max weight Dayglow buzz from the Central Disc Company store. Me and my buddy started a disc company last summer, and this is one of the things that we have available for our store right now. Check us out on Facebook. This one is just overstable buzz. It's fresh. It goes straight, hooks up, nice and good. This is my my old Nate Doss signature color shift buzz, kind of bluish, purplish. Used to have his signature on. It's got a couple aces on it. I love this one. It's nice and neutral. It goes straight. Doesn't really turn a whole lot, but it goes nice and straight and has a little bit less of a pronounced fade. So it's a lot more straighter overall. And then I just picked this one up at a garage sale for $3, which is pretty awesome. 10-year bar stamp anniversary buzz. It's a thrower because it was a thrower when I got it, so I'm not gonna, try and pretend it's something that it's not. And it's just a cool little conversation piece. People are like, "Oh, that's a sweet buzz. Where'd you get it?" Garage sale, $3. Pretty awesome. This is my understable buzz. It flips over, still gives a little bit of a nice comeback. But if I give it a nice big hyzer, if I move my thumb out here, if I give it a nice big hyzer, it pops up, goes flat, and holds flat the whole way. If I move my thumb out and give it a little nice anhyzer, it'll just hold out the whole way. But on a nice neutral flight, it'll give me some turn, check up a very little bit at the end and settle down. So great disc to have. Then I have this 2015 Crystal Z Memorial Championship Buzz OS with the flag stamp on the buzz back there. Love this disc. If you've ever thrown a Buzz OS, nice and flat top, almost like a longer zone. It's just a tank. I mean, I can't really get any distance out of it or anything, but it fights headwinds, and it gives me real nice hyzers. And the metal flake, I think, makes it even probably more overstable than a regular Z Buzz OS would be. And then this is another garage sale find. This one's really cool. I am excited to have this one in the bag and play with some people that might actually have been around at a time where this disc was pretty popular. It is the Discraft Elite Pro Plastic MRX, which was one of the 2 main discs in their mid-range lineup in the early part of the 2000s, kind of a precursor to the Buzz. The MRX is the more overstable complement to the MRV. For me, this one is just a nice big turnover with a little bit of hookup. Really, I just keep it in the bag because it's awesome, because I really don't throw it all that much. It doesn't go as far as the buzzes do, but it is, if ideal conditions are right, it'll give a nice pop up that'll go straight for a long time, and then a big finish, which is more than a bigger finish than one of my buzzes would do. So it does kind of have that spot in the bag, but really it's just because it's a cool disc, and I like to carry it around and brag about how I got it at a garage sale for $3 too. So one of the discs, now moving on to my what are these called? Fairway drivers. That's right, fairways. Moving on to these, one of the discs that I have absolutely loved over the last couple years, and that's another one of those that I have in the bag to kind of raise some eyebrows and make people jealous, is this 4-point Z Talon. From back when Talons were in production, and it's got that sweet Bell's Brewery stamp on it. I love Bell's beer. They make great products, and they're a Michigan company, so a marriage of two great things into this one awesome disc. It's really beat up. You might be able to kind of see it's really dinged up and old. So as a fresh Talon would just be a very overstable mid-range or fairway driver. This gives me a lot of turn and a lot of checkup too, so it's a very overall natural, like straight flying disc. But what I normally use this one for, I'm not a super big overhand guy. Because this is such an old disc and it's still got the stability of the mold of the Talon, I can throw really big sky anhysers that almost behave like an overhand shot, and they kind of fight out of it and come back. And it's just a really versatile disc. I use it for a lot of forehands that I want to come around a long way and then settle down. Some hyzer flips. And especially like in the woods, I can fan grip this and put it out really nice and gentle, and it'll still give me a nice S-curve. So it's a fun disc. I call it my magic disc because people don't know what it is when I pull it out, but it's got the Bell's logo on it, which gets everybody excited. So, excuse me. That is my first of my fairway drivers. My next one, Old Faithful Discraft XL. Kind of fits a similar spot as that Talon, but it's brand new, easily replaceable. I can just throw it nice and soft, maybe a birdie grip, maybe a fan grip. Gives me a nice little S-curve, very slow, at least for drivers. Essentially, it's a slower driver. Nice and controllable. I can put a lot behind it, give it a little more turn, put a little less behind it, it'll travel straight, give me a little fade at the end. But this is just one of those that I would be lost without this thing in the woods, because I know its flight so well that if there's trees and there's obstacles to navigate, I can flip it and I can make it behave the way I want it to. So this is a new disc to me that I've absolutely loved. Obviously, the T-Bird from Innova is one of the most famous, one of the most popular molds out there. So many people throw T-Birds. Pretty much everybody throws a T-Bird, I would say. If you don't, it's probably because you're a sponsored player and you can't, because you're sponsored by some other company. But this disc is based off of a T-Bird mold. I think it was an 11-time T-Bird mold. And to me, it flies just like a perfectly seasoned T-Bird right out of the gate. It's the Legacy Rival. I have this one in the Icon plastic, which is nice. It's not super expensive, relatively easy to find if you've got a local place that you can go to. But it's just one of those comfort, it feels the way a good go-to fairway driver should feel, and it flies the way a go-to fairway driver should fly. A little bit of turn, nice and reliable fade at the end. It's just one of those things where it's like, it feels like it's your go-to disc the minute you throw it. And I love this driver. This has become probably my go-to off the tee for anything under like 400 feet. I love this driver a lot. Another one that's new to my bag is the Tracker. Haven't had a lot of opportunities to throw this, but to me it's kind of like a more overstable XL. It gives you a little bit of a turn and a lot more hookup at the end, so it's nice and workable. You can pipe it out there for a little bit on an anhyzer, and it'll ride and it'll come back. So it's got a little bit more distance potential, and if you put it on a hyzer, it has a lot of potential to fight the wind too. It's probably one of my more overstable fairway drivers, not my most by any stretch, but definitely one that I'm just kind of tinkering with in the bag right now, and so it kind of goes in and out. But right now, I like it. It fits. It feels a little bit like the Undertaker, because the Undertaker that I have is based off the same mold. It's a retooled Tracker. But it's a nice disc, and it was a really popular disc for a long time. I'm pretty into looking at old discs and seeing how I like them. So, Tracker. The Undertaker that I just mentioned, my big Z with the rainbow stamp, it's pretty overstable. It's more overstable than the Rival, which is why it's my go-to versus this. But this is probably number 1A. I pull this out pretty much almost as much, probably 60-40, as much as I pull out that Rival, because it goes straight, holds that straight line for a long time, and just has a little bit more of a fade to it. Fights the wind a little bit better than the Rival too. The Rival can give me a big turn if it's windy out, and this just doesn't do that. And I believe this is my last garage sale find before we kind of transition into the more higher speed drivers. This is another one $3 at a garage sale right around the corner from my house. I was so overjoyed to find this treasure trove. But this is actually a 4-point Cyclone, a Discraft Cyclone. So it's definitely that smaller, little bit higher of a profile driver. Looks almost the way that a Comet does if a Comet became a driver. It's definitely wider rim than the Comet, but it's got that lip right down there that is very pronounced. And so for me, this one is one that I fan grip and I throw it out on a little bit of a hyzer, and it just holds a hyzer nice and slow the whole way with a lot of glide. For how overstable it is, it has a lot of glide because that dome is so pronounced there. So for something that I need to go left for a long time, but I want that extra glide to make sure it gets there and I can't just pure spike it the whole way, I reach for this. I reach for this pretty often, to be completely honest. A lot more often than I thought. Again, I thought it was going to be one of those conversation pieces, but I do throw this pretty often and I like it a lot. So now on to some of the more wider rimmed drivers that I have. I have a couple new ones here. You've seen the Convict. I think you've seen the Convict. Maybe you haven't. This is a nice flat, very overstable, yet still pretty workable driver from Dynamic Discs. It's got a little bit of a turn in it, so it'll stand up a little bit, but it's nice and hard hookup, wind fighting disc. The numbers are 9, 4, turn 0.5, fade of 3. So this is kind of taken, this one and one other one have kind of filled the spot of my Predator. Never thought a Predator would come out of the bag, but I like the feel of this a lot more because it's a little bit thinner profile, easier to hold on to, and I like it for forehands for the same reasons. Then I have 2 brand new discs that I just got. This is the First Run Punisher. A little bit slower than some of my more warp speed drivers, but great into a headwind. Definitely a wind fighting, overstable disc that gives you a pretty good amount of distance. This is how I can imagine like probably a pretty brand new Star Destroyer would fly. It's got a little bit of a nose bead to it. It's almost like a little bit slower, slightly even more, no, I guess it's less stable than a Force, but it's definitely between a crank and a Force, and it fights wind really well. It's a little bit easier to control, a little bit easier to throw far than a Force. And then the brand new Big Z Machete. This was really the one when I was able to add this. That's upside down. Nah. When I was able to add this to my bag, I really was like, okay, not really much need for Predator. And this thing, again, super low profile, super flat top. This is the Firebird killer, for sure. If you're someone who's thrown Firebirds for a long time, nicer plastic, in my opinion. Nice and flat. Got a pretty nice nose here that keeps it nice and controllable like the Firebird does. And all this does is go left, even into the most significant headwind. I threw it the other day. It's probably like 18, 20 mile an hour headwinds, and still right out of my hand, didn't even budge to turn at all. Just came out of my hand and started going left. I was amazed. So great disc, definitely highly recommend it. New release from Discraft. Then I got my 3 real distance drivers. First Run Crank, you've seen it before. Getting a little flippy. It's getting a little bit, it gives me a little bit more turn than I like. When I first got it, it was a nice controlled turn with a good hookup, not super pronounced, but a nice fade that was predictable and you could play it. Even could throw it into a wind, into a little bit of headwind on a hyzer. Great disc, still love it. It's my max distance. This disc goes farther than any other disc in my bag. But I was lucky enough to score one of the very few Big Z Forces, and this thing is awesome. I absolutely love this disc. Hold on, Duke. I'll be there in a minute. I absolutely love this disc. It flies like a perfectly seasoned Force. If you're someone who has tried Forces out and you have to get them to where they're old and beat up like this one is in order for you to be able to throw it, the Big Z Force right out of the box is like a perfectly seasoned Force. And the Big Z plastic is super awesome. It's a little bit softer, a little bit more flexible. Still got that nice dome. It's actually got a bit higher of a dome than my other Forces do. But it gives a little bit of a pop, goes nice and far, and then when it's done, it just checks up and fades. It's great. Love this Big Z Force. And I love the fact that it's also a fundraiser for the Ledgestone Insurance Open this year. Nate Heinold, I don't know if he's got any left, probably not. They've probably gone pretty quick. He's the tournament director for that. He hooked me up. Awesome disc. Love this disc very, very much. And then I showed you this ESP Force 174, a little beat up. This gives me a flight that's a little bit more similar to the crank, and it gives me a lot of turn, pretty good amount of fade. Another one of those max distance drivers. If I'm like afraid that if I really put one behind the crank, it'll flip and get me in trouble, like into water or something, I'll just throw this instead, because this one won't flip and turn and burn, and it'll just give me a lot of turn and a lot of checkup. So this is a nice comfort disc to have in the bag. And then this stack is the stack of ones that go in and out. I'll try and keep it short. I do have another Force, a fresh, lighter weight 169 Force, just, you know, as backup. Predator, mentioned that earlier. I still keep it around. I still like to throw it. Still a really great disc. The Z plastic is nice and firm. But again, it's just a little bit, it's not quite as low profile as the other two. It doesn't skip as well. That's the other thing about the Machete, is that I think a couple bag updates ago, I was talking about how that XXX from Latitude 64 for skip shots was great. The Predator doesn't skip quite as good as the Machete does. First run, Z Undertaker, a little bit more overstable than my Big Z, excuse me. So if it's a windier day, I'll throw this in the bag. Back up to my crank, nothing special. I do have this X Nuke. One of the first distance drivers that I ever had when I started playing was an X Nuke, back when the X Nuke stamp was like the big radioactive sign, which was awesome. And I just bombed it. Probably still one of the farthest flying drivers I've ever owned. So I picked this one up. It's fresh. If it's not windy out, I keep this in my trunk. And if it's like, if I'm looking around and I'm like, yeah, not windy, and I know I'm going to probably need like a 500-foot drive on a hole or two, I'll just pull this out, because it will go that far. But if there's any wind, it's a little lighter weight too, 168. If there's any wind, I won't mess with it, because I just don't want to get myself in trouble if I don't have to. And then this Z Buzz, an older one. This one kind of came out of the bag in exchange for the 10-year, because they kind of fly the same. This one's a little older, a little more understable, with a little bit more hookup, straighter flying overall. But then this one is really the one that I've hemmed and hawed about being out of the bag mostly, because this is an awesome disc. I don't know if you've ever thrown Flex. I think, yeah, this is a Flex ESP FLX Surge SS, so it's nice and flexy. The Surge SS is probably, to me, the only driver that I've ever been able to throw that combines really excellent distance. I'm talking like 375 to 425, really easy for a speed. I think it's like maybe a speed 9 or 10. It's not a super wide rim driver. With just absolute straight precision. Like, I'm talking, if it comes out of my hand, it'll go this much this way and this much this way. Like, it's a laser line. So the only thing is, again, if it's windy, I won't take it out. But the FLX Surge SS is an awesome disc. So that is everything. Super long video today, but I had a lot to go over. So thanks for watching. I'm gonna go let my dog outside because he's been bugging the crap out of me for like 5 minutes. So see you later.